We're going to start this half hour by addressing the emotionally loaded topic of policing in America. We're looking at the challenges that police departments face after recent incidents, including the death last week of Mario Gonzalez after police in California pinned him to the ground. The calls for police reform have grown louder ever since the conviction of Derek Chauvin for the murder of George Floyd. And then, of course, there's the issue of stopping the recent attacks against Asian Americans. So a lot going on here. And Janai is here with much more. Janai, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. So much going on. So we gathered 4 prominent law enforcement officials from around the country. Paula Balafas, a commander with the University of Colorado Police Department and president of the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives, DeAndre Hutchison, sergeant at the Houston Police Department and president of the Afro-American Police League, Scott Thompson, a former police chief of the Camden County Police Department, and David Honda, chief of the Watsonville, California Police Department, taking a deep dive into the critical issues of police reform and department changes.
I think we're at a watershed moment in American policing. I truly hope that the blue wall of silence, which has existed, is coming down brick by brick, in large part because of what happened with George Floyd. In that trial, it was refreshing to see police officers testify against him.
You're so right about how important that was in that trial. So important that then we saw the prosecution in closing arguments with a sort of diagram, like a spider web, showing you how many different law enforcement officers testified for them to say that it was wrong. What has been the reaction in law enforcement to Derek Chauvin being convicted?
It's just been a sigh of relief to see that accountability happen and see the case come full circle. And we saw the verdict last week. Hopefully it took a little pressure off the good police officers, because that was not an anti-police trial.
We all became cops because we want to do the right thing. We don't want to hurt anyone. We want to follow the law. And when those in our ranks don't follow the law, I fully expect them to be held accountable. And that jury verdict did that.
We see so many incidents on video where it leaves people questioning whether the police officer did the right thing, from George Floyd to Breonna Taylor, Dante Wright, Andrew Brown Jr. recently. All of them were unarmed. Even in the 24 hours after the jury convicted Derek Chauvin, we saw 6 police killings. David,
Wow.
What do you think this says about the state of policing in America?
Unfortunately, I think as a profession, we've lost a lot of trust with our communities that we serve. We really got to come together and become unified on how we police. We got to look at past practices, what's not working anymore. We have to progress as society changes and look at our practices. We got to look at different ways to approach how we make stops, how we enforce the law.
When we see these videos, we hear, oh, a bad apple. And now you've got people saying, well, it's not bad apples, it's a rotten tree that maybe has some good apples. How much do you think the cone of blue silence contributes to this, the culture in police departments that contributes to good officers not speaking up when they see bad things happening?
I think a lot of it depends on the department. Growing a positive culture within a department, it doesn't just start at the top of the organization. It has to be able to go all the way to the brand new officer who's just starting. Scott mentioned onboarding. Having the right fit, screening out people who are not going to be qualified for the position, who are not going to be a good fit for your organization. It's crucial because having people who are maybe bad actors, they can absolutely decimate a good culture in a department.
David, what would you say is the biggest challenge facing police officers today?
For us to survive as a profession, for any community to be effective in policing, you have to work with partnerships in your community. You can't police a city by yourself.
What is the impact on police officers when they have to spend so much of their time dealing with issues of mental health and these other societal issues that they're not necessarily equipped to deal with?
When you send a police officer to handle a societal problem, sometimes the results can be catastrophic. So we have to reinvent ourselves.
Scott, do you think that involves retraining police officers?
Yeah, absolutely. So long as policing, by and large, embraces this command and control, this rush in, assert your authority, and bring a resolution as quickly as possible. You know, what we're seeing now is that those types of actions, more times than not, escalate situations instead of de-escalating the situation.
Training officers, it's probably one of the most important things our agencies do, because you are setting the tone and the culture for the rest of the entire police department.
We also have to look at diversity on our departments.
David, on the topic of diversity, you were the first Asian American police chief in your city's history. So that obviously impacts your perspective coming to law enforcement.
Going back historically, I mean, you've had anti-Asian bias and violence going back to the 1850s in this country. We really need to face our history and come to grips with that, but actually turn that into a positive and learn how to engage with all the different communities that we serve.
Black Lives Matter, one of the largest social justice movements in the history of this country, calling for police accountability, protesting against police abuse. But somehow, Black Lives Matter has been posed as the opposition of police, as if you have to choose one side or the other.
I think the overwhelming majority of the movement itself, they're just looking for justice. They've been under oppression for so many decades that they're just tired of it.
We marched with Black Lives Matter activists right here in Houston, right after the George Floyd incident occurred. We marched with the family, we marched with our mayor, we marched with our police chief. So one, that let the community know that we were hurting just as much as they were.
Here's one thing you need to remember. In the room full of people in their mid-20s who are just coming on the job, no one coming on the job today was standing on the other side of the bridge, the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama on Bloody Sunday. And no one in that room engaged in the behaviors. However, the uniform that they wear was there. And although your position today in the badge, you may not be responsible for it, that uniform's responsible to it. I believe that the government needs to make the first step on this and have that type of engagement.
A really frank and open conversation. And we also talked about solutions, the changes they believe could help reestablish trust, rebuild relationships, and reinvent policing as we know it in this country. Former Chief Thompson has done it. He oversaw the abolition of his police department and radically rebuilt and restructured the organization, leading to improved relations with the community and brought crime rates to a 50-year low. We'll share that part of our conversation tomorrow morning. But Eva, I know you said you were in Philly when Chief Thompson was making all of those changes.
Yeah, I walked with him on the streets of Camden as he was trying to do a lot of that work. Thanks, Janai.
Important conversation, Janai. Thank you for bringing this to us. We're also seeing that debate play out on Capitol Hill as we speak in the form of possible legislation there.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.